Going to turn now to Weijia Jiang at the White House because the president on social media quite actively today, that's no surprise. But what he did say was sort of a surprise, denying there's any shortage of munitions, offensive or defensive, in the Middle East, and that he's extraordinarily pleased with the defense secretary, and that any reporting about those two subjects that says otherwise is quote unquote treasonous. Weijia, pick it up from there.
That's right, Major. The president posted overnight about the massive amounts of munitions that the U.S. has and categorically denied that there were any shortages, even though several media outlets, including CBS News, has reported otherwise. And it's not all munitions that U.S. officials are worried about, but some kinds. For example, long-range guided missiles and air defense interceptors. I did ask the president about what he posted in the Oval Office. We were just there a short time ago, and I asked about what he wrote versus the request from the administration for $67 billion for the Iran war, which includes, Major, $21 billion to restock munitions. So if there is this massive amount, then why are you asking for tens of billions of dollars more? And the president said, because we always want more. And he seemed to acknowledge that there is a smaller supply of some types of munitions, even though he did not specify. He said some types, we have virtually an endless supply of. Other types, it is tighter. But he says American companies are building those and sending them every day. But of course, we know that these very precise weapons don't get built overnight. And so the president continues to insist that there is no problem here when, in fact, our reporting suggests otherwise. As for the Pete Hegseth part, the Secretary Hegseth part, the Washington Post reported that there was a contentious exchange between the two at Camp David last week when they had a cabinet meeting, and the president asked specifically about why this is still an issue on the munitions. And there was an exchange there trying to explain why this hadn't been addressed yet. But the president, at least publicly, wants to signal that everything's okay, even though our reporting and their own requests suggest otherwise.
Weijia Jiang, North Lawn of the White House. Thank you very much. Joined now by Aaron David Miller, friend of the program, also a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Aaron, great to have you with us. How is this reporting, which seems pretty well sourced from lots of different news organizations, being absorbed and processed in the Middle East? Because if America is an under-resourced ally right now, trying to continue to prosecute this war, bets are going to be hedged.
I mean, I think it's music. Thanks for having me, by the way, Major. And just before we start, I've worked for Republicans and Democrats and voted for them. I just think it's another indication of not thinking through the kind of campaign that the Pentagon was going to wage. And again, if you're Xi in China and Putin in Ukraine, I mean, you're rubbing your hands together. Every time a TLAM, a Tomahawk missile is launched, or a Patriot or THAAD interceptor, it's one fewer the Europeans can buy from us in an effort to supply Ukraine. And I'm sure Xi is wondering and delighted by the fact that the administration is now bogged down in a seemingly never-ending war with Iran. Plus, it sends an unmistakable signal to Iran that we are not as tough, formidable, or resilient as we think we are.
And Aaron David Miller, it appears that the Gulf allies that we have are nervously watching the conversations only involving Iran and Oman about the rules of passage to the Strait of Hormuz, and at this hour appear willing to accept whatever they agree to. How is that being worked through?
Look, geography, Major, in the Middle East is destiny. And the reality is the Iranians have weaponized geography. They have identified 2 points of weakness. Number one, key Gulf states. And number two, to basically encumber and work toward control and leverage over the straits. If the administration agrees to this in an effort to get out of the conflict, and I think you have to distinguish here between American national interests. It is not in America's natural interest to cede control over the Straits of Hormuz. In the end, 4, 5, 6 years from now, there'll be additional oil infrastructure that will bypass the Straits. But for now, it is not going to further American national interests. It might further Donald Trump's interests, because I think the Iranians are prepared to let him out of this war if, in fact, he'll agree to essentially concede sovereignty, even limited sovereignty, Major, over one of the planet's key choke points.